All right, welcome back. Welcome back to the Late Show. This is your host, Young Brando, live from Los Angeles. I wanted to start a little bit earlier today. In fact, around 5:30, but I had just come back from a run. I was sorry about that. Um, I had just come back from a run and I was completely wasted. So I had to take some time to recharge, but I'm here with you for at least 2 hours. We have a goal again, a very humble one of 5 super chats of $5 or more, which will push me to do a third hour. We might set another goal. If we accomplish that, then maybe I'll even end up going until midnight. Who knows? There's a lot to talk about, a lot to look forward to in terms of auctions in London, in Paris, in Hong Kong, most certainly. There are some interesting releases that we can talk about. Some ideas about what some of these elite high horological brands like Lange and Söhne can do in the future, especially as the crisis seems to be setting in now after such brands having experienced perhaps some of the best periods in their entire history in the post-pandemic era. They now have to make do with, they now have to contend with, they now have to face the music about the fact that some of those new customers they thought they had gained during that period might not be coming back, at least might not be coming back to buy watches from them, and perhaps not even on the secondary market. But that's a very big question that we will get to soon enough. You may have noticed that my head is even bigger than usual. That's because I had a stream last night where I shared some of my favorites, some of my predictions for the GPHG 2024 Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève that had its award ceremony just earlier today. Yesterday, of course, for Switzerland already. And I got most of them right. And of course, you know that I'm only being partly prideful to this extent because obviously choosing, you know, a favorite pick and then a sleeper pick from a list of half a dozen, 6 pieces, that's already a good percentage, right? You know, if I name 2 out of 6, there's a good chance that I will get something right. But I basically got everything right in this case, and a lot of times I was very happy to see that what I liked and what I favored myself from the perspective of my own taste oftentimes coincided with what was chosen. Now, of course, that kind of puts into a strange perspective what I wanted to say about this award. At the end of the day, this is an industry award show, and it has come under scrutiny for multiple reasons over the years. One, of course, because only some of the luxury groups and some of the bigger brands are pouring so much energy and resources into this event at the exclusion and at the expense of some other luxury groups and some other important brands. There's a chance where the results are inevitably slanted towards them, inevitably favoring their watches. second concern, not necessarily a secondary concern, is the pay-for-play structure of the GPHG, and the general opacity of its process. Now, we can get a glimpse at that when you click the 2024 edition, and from that menu, choose entries. Right now, of course, these have kind of disappeared. But every year, anyone, not even a relative newcomer, but an absolute unknown quantity of a brand can come up with a watch. Only timepieces commercialized after May 2023 and at the latest by the end of October 2024 are eligible to take part. All you need to do, as long as your watch hits that time period, hits that window, is to give them an entry fee of 800 Swiss francs and send them a unit. And to my understanding, for that, the deadline is what they say there, by the end of October, especially if your watch is chosen as a nominee. Now, because you can enter the competition without being filtered out, without being sifted, without being officially nominated in any way, just by sending in your watch, or at least the information about your watch, and with an entry fee of 800 Swiss francs, you can get practically free publicity for the time periods at which the official nominees are announced. Since GPHG itself does not shy away from publicizing the entrants, so to speak, this has created a lot of confusion, mostly on the part of outsiders, mostly on the part of average enthusiasts, where some of the entrant watches were understood to be nominees, and what in the GPHG lingo are the nominees are actually the finalists. So there were a few brands in the past, I won't name and shame them, but who had entered their watches and kind of ran with that, presenting, on their own social media channels and similar platforms themselves as nominees of the award, basically. And on the one hand, I do want to give them benefit of doubt and say they were perhaps themselves confused by the opacity of the process. But I think a lot of times it was just some of these brands, some of these micro brands, some of the smaller independents taking advantage of, again, what I call the opacity of GPHG's process. And GPHG kind of lets them do it, lets them get away with it. GPHG just plays along. Whatever phrase you want to use, they don't really clamp down on that. And it's some of the best publicity that you can do, right? Even for a very small brand, the ability to globally broadcast the name of your company, the name and a likeness, at least a rendering, if not a real photo of your watch, to this global audience, where a lot of social media platforms, a lot of other social media platforms, and even some of those so-called journalistic outlets are more than willing to sometimes discuss your watch, give it some airtime. It seems like a pretty good deal, right? You get a marketing campaign for about the money you would make by selling a single watch for a few months on a global scale. And if your watch is in fact lucky, if you're lucky enough to get your watch into the actual list of nominees, the sixth finalists, so to speak, then at another pop of 8,000 Swiss francs and a unit of your watch, an example of your watch, which needs to be exhibited, which needs to be also, of course, handled and inspected by the members of their academy and the jury and whatever else. You get to extend that campaign well into the end of the year, all the way into the holiday season, as it were, mid-November. And again, you get to participate in the big gala. You get your name mentioned among the 6 finalists, and you basically get to be part of this larger ceremony. Now, again, I'm not necessarily sharing all this information with a sense of cynicism even. This is the case with a lot of industry awards, right? A lot of the film festivals would charge you to enter your film into competition. They would charge you even more sometimes for your film to be shown in the competition. Obviously, a lot of times to enter that festival circuit, your film needs to be picked up by a producer who would finance such things, right? So, all industries have their own standards and procedures. But when it comes to the horological world, this does not seem so outrageous for them to have an entry fee and then another perhaps more onerous or a heftier sum for you to enter the official competition where in fact your watch will be included in the final ceremony. But I think it's a process that needs to be explained and perhaps outlined in a way that is more clear to the average person as well, because I don't think it is. Basil, thank you so much for being here. Hello, welcome. Alireza with the first super chat of the day. Both of these great folks are also members of the channel, which means they have access to exclusive content. Thank you so much. He says, speaking of pay to play, have a good show. Ali, you know that you don't need to pay anything to be part of this show, whether you want to stay in the chat or click to the link that's pinned and join the panel. I'm hoping to settle life down and be more active again in 2025. And as you have seen, Ali, I have become more active. I try to have a show again every night, even if it's not for 4 hours. But I'm open. Again, I'm open to know, I'm open to have 4, 5-hour shows, even entire marathons, as long as I know there's interest and I know that people value my presence and what I put out there in terms of the passion and knowledge is being valued. Alireza says, I meant the GPHG buddy, not you. Yeah, listen, I mean, it's, I don't know. I thought that's exactly what it meant. So now coming back to pieces that won, I'm actually really happy with the results. There were categories that we didn't even get to look and that I had to skip over. There are, of course, categories that are kind of above, that transcend the categories that are announced in advance, right? chronometry prize, for example, is given to a watch that is entered in one of the specific categories. For example, the Ledra watch that I wanted to single out last night, which was part of the time-only category, actually won the chronometry prize. And, you know, what better watch for that, right? We have already spoken about this particular piece and how even in a nominal fashion, how audacious in a way it is to seek a certification for chronometric precision from 3 different observatories in 3 different countries. And Bernhard Lederer has done that, gaining the certification from Besançon in France, Geneva, Switzerland, and Glashütte in Germany. It's really beautiful. And of course, being a time-only watch, this is at once a very austere and minimalistic watch, but it's not a kind of watch that lacks complexity either, because it has, as we have also mentioned last night, it has remontoire d'égalité, which kind of helps the minute hand to jump in about every 10 seconds and complete the minutes in a unique scale that is divided in 6 steps. So even in the austerity, in the simplicity of that dial, which, by the way, I think is really nicely designed with that oversized but off-center subdial for seconds, you have a little bit of a complexity, a little bit of even playfulness, you might say. And that's absolutely appreciated. And obviously, Bernhard Lederer himself, being of German descent, has a manufacturer in Saint Blaise, Switzerland, where he makes practically everything in-house. Beautiful silver dial, made in-house, finished by hand. The handset is also handmade with hardened steel that is heat tempered, that is heat blued, and creating, I think, a very fine and elegant contrast and giving some great legibility to this piece. By the way, please hit the like button. I want to recognize Split Hair in the chat, because, you know, it's not like I was unaware of this structure, but he was the person who included me in this thread, in this email list that he sent out, outlining his concerns about GPHG's nomination structure. And the fact that he trusted me with something like that, the fact that he thought that I might have something to offer, a perspective to share on that topic, is very valuable to me. So I really appreciate you, Split Hair. Thank you so much. Please hit the like button while you're at it. I really, really appreciate it. By the way, Van Lux, I know, you know, you have an interesting sense of humor, but let's not, you know, let's not get things there where we where we insult people for no reason. That's not necessary. I mean, honestly, again, I usually appreciate your sense of humor, but let's not lob insults against anyone who is part of community and who gives some sort of time, at least, and some sort of viewership to this channel. Hopefully more. I like OC, honestly. But yeah, let's pump the brakes on that. Direct your jokes towards me for the most part. I love you and I would never take it the wrong way. So if you want to call me names, I'm more than fine with that. Another watch that I really liked was the Otsuka Lotek number 6, which is a watch made by a Japanese independent. It won the prize in the challenge category. There are 2 categories within the prize ceremony that are dedicated to more affordable pieces. Challenges for pieces, I believe, that are less than 3,000 or 3,500 in Swiss francs at retail. And of course, the Petite Aiguille, which has actually quite a bit of prestige in its own right, is for watches that cost less than 10,000 Swiss francs at the point of retail. Otsuka Lotek number 6, which has a unique display of time, as well as a date indicator 2, with 2 retrograde hands, was really pleasing to me. I like the fact also that it comes from outside of a European location. At the end of the day, such award ceremonies almost inevitably are very Swiss focused, or at least almost exclusively European. So it's always nice to see Grand Seiko's Kodo Tourbillon, for example, winning that chronometry prize that we were just talking about a couple of years back, or quote unquote a micro brand from Japan making its mark at this particular category with a unique design language, with something that stirs up, I think, a different kind of feeling, using ultimately what is a very traditional complication, which is the retrograde. So I really love this watch, and I'm really happy, beyond the fact that my prediction stuck, I'm really happy that it won. I had also liked Space One's entry in this category, but I did also somewhat chided for the case design that reminded me of another brand that I really like, but that's just me. For Petite Aiguille, you guys remember once again, Kudoke 3 with the salmon dial was one of my favorites. I was ultimately torn between that watch and the Furlan Marie perpetual calendar. I think I kind of foregrounded the Furlan Marie perpetual one above this, but saying that I really liked this watch as well. I'm still very happy that Kudoke won. Aesthetically, again, I like that this is a very unique way of expressing time. Stefan Kudoke worked on a chronograph scale when he was still at Glashütte Original, that is somewhat reminiscent of this 3-sector fan-like scale that you see on the top half of the dial, which shows through a 3-pronged structure the hour, right, with two of the hands. And then you have a centrally deployed and very finely twisted minute hand that, of course, shows the minutes on the periphery of the dial, on the chapter ring. And of course, you have that infinity sign, which symbolizes the timeless artisanal craft that Kudoke and his colleagues bring into this watch, both at minute 60 or minute 0 at 12 o'clock, and also as the counterweight of the minute hand as well. I also like, again, on an aesthetic plane, perhaps, a salmon dial and white metal, which is stainless steel in this case. And once more, we are talking about a watch that costs right under 10,000 in Swiss francs. So not exactly thrifty for sure, but for a luxury watch that has so many worked, handcrafted elements and hand finished components, I think it's an interesting proposition. And I've also jokingly said that I really love the movement, because it is at once a throwback to traditional watchmaking with frosted gilt finish, but also with the hand engraved elements and layouts. It really gives a whole new meaning to the word balanced cock. Maybe it's just me, but that's exactly what I see there. Let me know if you also see what I see there on the back. Thank you, Van Lux. You know I love you. You know I love you. So I was really happy that at least one of the pieces that I underlined in the Petite Aiguille were chosen. Again, perhaps my first favorite was the Furlan Marie Perpetual One, which is a very interesting preposition for a perpetual calendar under 10K. And I also, of course, loved that it was built on a module invented by Dominique Renaud and Julien Tixier, a great dynamic duo, as it were, one of whom represents this legacy that goes all the way back to some of the most interesting and influential high complications from 1986 all the way into 2000 with Dominique Renaud and his joint venture with Gilles Papi, APRP as it is today known, or I think it might be by now simply folded into AP's complication department, but that is kind of a high horological laboratory through which so many of the great watchmakers of our time have passed. That includes the Groeneveld brothers, that includes also Dominique Grubel and Stephen Forsey, among so many. Tony De Haas, who is the head of, I want to say head of complications as well, or head of product development, perhaps at Lange und Söhne. At any rate, again, he's one of the main people in one of the major brands today. Anyway, so I had to mention Furlan Mari in a sense. For the Sports Watch Prize, again, it was one of the pieces that I highlighted that won. And I made a particular point to say, I don't usually like Ming watches, but when I do, I really do like this piece that is called the Blue Fin, Ming's take on the dive watch genre, so to speak. Ming 3709 Blue Fin that has a very nice luminous signature, which Ming watches usually do. I think the color scheme just fits really well with that particular rubber strap. I've always liked, as an alternative to the classic, iconic, whatever you want to call it, Submariner design, where you have the dive timing bezel on the outside, whether it's anodized aluminum or much later ceramic. As an alternative to that, I've always liked the internal bezels. So the double crown structure here is also, I think, very appealing to me, at least. I like that with the Jaeger-LeCoultre Polaris. I like it here. It also, I think, kind of reaffirms that feel of a dive watch as a tool watch. Of course, most of us wear these things sitting on desks the whole day, hence the term desk diver, but that doesn't necessarily kill the romanticism of at least imagining them as toolish timepieces. By the way, again, we still have 4 more super chats of $5 or more if you want me to continue beyond 9 o'clock. So keep that in mind. Maybe we'll already wrap things at 9. Who knows? But there's a lot to talk about. I would really like to share, look ahead to some auctions, and certainly also bring some points about what brands like A. Lange & Söhne are to do in this particular situation, in this bottleneck that the market is indeed facing. I didn't get things right with the artistic watches category. My choice for the artistic crafts was, perhaps I was a little biased. I highlighted 3 watches in that category in ascending order. That was the Hermes Arceau Chorus Stellarum, which kind of has a skeleton rider on it with an automaton kind of function. I also said my second favorite was the Chopard LUC Quattro Spirits Year of the Dragon, beautiful hand engraved dragon motif on a gold dial for this jump hour watch. And my absolute favorite was the Anderson Genève jump hour with the black jade stone dial, platinum case with stunning pink gold details both on the dial and the crown. None of these even got close, so to speak. And what was chosen was Van Cleef & Arpels Lady Arpels Jour Enchanté, which is a watch that I didn't even explain yesterday, but it has a really stunning and detailed métier d'art dial. A 3-dimensional scene in a 41 millimeter white gold case. It's a watch that's decked with different gemstones as well, not to mention bezel that is set with brilliant cut diamonds that extend all the way onto the T-bar that joins the case with the leather strap. That's a section where I completely missed. Captain, my captain, thank you so much. We are so much closer now to the goal. Only 3 more to go in about 20 minutes. Captain says, congrats on your predictions. Who are you picking in Tyson versus Paul exhibition? Captain, I love that you termed it an exhibition because they were framing this for such a long time as a real fight. And now we hear that it's going to be 2-minute rounds and 16 size 16 gloves, 16-ounce gloves, I should say. Listen, I mean, it is an exhibition fight, which makes it even harder to guess. The last time we saw Tyson in the ring for something semi-serious was years ago during the pandemic against Roy Jones Jr., and he didn't really look like the fighter he was, or even like a fighter at all. So I look at it precisely as that. I don't think anybody is getting knocked out with 2-minute rounds and 16-ounce gloves. Mind you, a lot of the knockouts happen because of long rounds, right? That's why you don't see, for example, as many knockouts in women's boxing, because the rounds are shorter, and championship fights, if I'm not mistaken, again, I don't follow women's boxing all that closely. Championship fights are, I think, 10 rounds. So when you have shorter fights, it's so much easier for boxers to be saved by the bell, refresh themselves mentally and physically in between the rounds, and somehow survive into the next one, and before you know it, the fight is over. So more than the 16-ounce gloves, I think the fact that this is going to be a 2-minute round fight already more or less kills the chance that there might be a knockout. Honestly, I think you might see a scene where both hands are raised. Don't take that as a betting or investment advice, but I think a draw really seems to be on the horizon for this one. Split Hair says they like each other to really fight. And Captain says, interesting, I did not know that about KOs. Yeah, Captain, a lot of, I don't know if you watched, for example, the fight. Again, I don't like them. I don't like either one of these fighters, but when Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia fought, that knockout, for example, even though body shots can hurt as much, if not more, than headshots, I think that knockout was mostly about Ryan Garcia giving up, not wanting to take punishment for so many other rounds. Well, I think it was 3.5, 4 more rounds to go. He just gave up. He didn't have the heart to go any further. But when it's two minutes per round, you can easily make it to the end. Anyway, I think the boxing talk against the backdrop of this jam set watch made me lose half of my listeners. So I will come back to watches, but this artistic crafts category was a category that I missed out on completely. Even though I had picks, none of them even got close. It was the Lady Arpez Jour Enchanté that won. The jewelry category I didn't discuss at all. I'm happy to see that Chopard won the prize with a secret watch, with a mystery watch, the Laguna high jewelry that kind of, in its usual appearance, hides the watch part of it in the protective cocoon of a seashell. It's a beautiful piece, not something that I imagine even seeing on someone else's wrist. I don't know, it's really not my style, even to gifts to a significant other or a lady friend, but I do appreciate the nautical theme. I do appreciate that the entire piece looks like a collection of seashells. I think that's a great idea, and it's a very nice canvas to showcase the gem setting expertise of a brand like Chopard, which is in equal measure a jewelry brand and a watch brand. The chronograph category was another one that I missed. I really like Sylvain Pinot. I don't like Messina Lab as much, but you guys know perhaps already from my enthusiasm about the long discontinued FP Jaune Octa chronograph. I like executions of the chronograph that kind of have this throwback feel, that perhaps even look back to the era of the pocket watch chronograph. And this is certainly one of those, with an off-center main dial that is kind of shifted towards 12 o'clock, and then a mostly open work dial that especially exposes the chronograph work at the lower third of the dial, a 45-minute totalizer at around 4 o'clock, and a continuous running seconds subdial at around 8. And a centrally deployed blued chronograph seconds hand. I think this is genuinely a stunning watch. I like how it has a very simple appearance, with even as it really exhibits all the chronographic details of the watch, and even if in fact it foregrounds such details, right? A lot of times chronograph pieces have relatively busy dials that are also hard to read oftentimes. This is a watch that in a way looks very minimalistic, but at the same time also has that feeling of an industrial design, where the open working of the caliber, or the very architecture of the caliber of the movement, is made for exhibition on the dial side. And I actually like that. So I don't mind to be proven wrong here. I don't mind to have missed out on any of the candidates here, any of the nominees. At the end of the day, Sylvain Pinot is an independent watchmaker that I really do like. So I'm glad the award went in this direction. Another one that I got right was the Mechanical Exception Prize. Of course, in a way, the path for this win was opened by the fact that the grand prize, the Aiguille d'Or, the golden hand, went to the IWC Portuguese Eternal Calendar. But obviously, for the Mechanical Exception Prize, a world time watch that for the first time takes care of the summertime daylight savings time adjustments, is a very, very worthy candidate. Of course, this watch also combines the world timer function, not only with a perpetual calendar, but also with a flying tourbillon that is right there at the traditional 12 o'clock, fully exhibited, almost given, in fact, the pride of place in the watch, with an open work display as well. All sorts of lovely details, including the roller style displays for the cities and the Aventurine center dial. All these aesthetic details, I think, make it signature Beauvais, even as this watch also goes beyond, in so many ways, beyond everything that is associated with the brand Beauvais. It's called a Recital 28 Prowess 1. Of course, the price itself is very otherworldly, upwards of north of 700,000 in Swiss francs, but it's a very impressive piece, and also quite impressive in that it has a 10-day power reserve that it derives from a single barrel. So what else would you need for a watch that constitutes a mechanical exception, a novel solution to one of the lingering problems with world timers, a combination of not one, not two, but three prestige, quote-unquote, complications, if you count the tourbillon as well, a novel signature aesthetic vision for the display of the dial, and also a 10-day power reserve for all these complications. I think this is well worthy of an award. Thank you again for your support. Bezels, blah, blah, blah. Bezels, thank you so much. You bring us only that much closer to the goal. 2 more super chats of $5 or more in the remaining 11 and a half minutes means that I will go until not 9, but 10, not another hour, but another 2 hours. So if someone wants to chip in towards that goal, I really appreciate it. Clicking the like button is free, and that's a lot of help. And as I reach towards my goal of 2.5K, 2,500 subscribers, your efforts in sharing the link with other enthusiasts and collectors is just as meaningful. So please do that, if nothing else. And I really appreciate it. The Calendar and Astronomy Watch Prize, actually, this was one of my favorites. And I will share the video that I just put on my Instagram page, because I had the chance to examine this watch up close when I was in New York for watch time. And that is the Laurent Ferrier Classic Moon Silver. That was the watch they entered for the Calendar and Astronomy Prize. It is the brand's first moon phase display. Laurent Ferrier, of course, had this case design for the longest time. It is, in fact, their original when they released their tourbillon, what they call a galet, pebble classic. They had an annual calendar for quite a while, but it was never offered in this case and never combined with a moon phase complication. There's also a white gold version of this piece with a blue dial that almost feels like a different watch. I'll share that on my Instagram as well. But if you're interested, please feel free to take a look on Instagram and give a like, here, of course. Hi, Ryan Hoffrey. Thank you so much for being here. Power reserve indicator on the back for this hand-wound movement. Beautiful silver dial that combines with a pink gold case. It's 40 millimeters, but it's so well designed and contoured that even on my skimpy wrists, it looks like a decent dress watch, almost conservatively sized even. The second subdial circles around the moon phase complication, which is actually a beautiful combination of aventurine glass, superluminova details, and translucent petrol blue enamel. So it actually has a luminous display of the moon phases in both hemispheres, north and south. Beautiful. Right under the spear-like hand stack, there is a red arrow that shows the date, that indicates the date on the periphery of the dial, and that scale is in a beautiful shade of blue as well. Funny thing, you know, there's so many colors on this dial, actually. Mostly blue and silver, but also dashes of red, and it just combines so well. I think even the font chosen for the Roman numerals is just brilliant, perfect. And I kind of made fun of this in the caption that I wrote, saying like it wasn't for nothing that Laurent Ferrier was head of creation at that other Genevan brand. And of course, that refers to his substantial time where he was the head of the design department, or what is, in the French-speaking world, a lot of times called creations department, création. So that eye to detail and that penchant for elegant but also daring design is something that Laurent Ferrier, of course, carries forward to his namesake brand. So I was really happy to see him win this award with the Laurent Ferrier Classic Moon Silver, which is an annual calendar with a moon phase complication that is very aesthetically pleasing, almost poetic, and that shows in a luminous manner the moon phases in both hemispheres. So that was the winner of the calendar and astronomy category. The tourbillon, even though my own favorite was the Voutilainen 20th anniversary, I did say that the Daniel Roth will probably win because LVMH is behind it, and it did. Again, you guys know how deeply I respect the master behind this brand, the person who gave it his proper name, one of the absolute pioneers of independent watchmaking, we're talking about Daniel Roth, of course. I also respect deeply the two master watchmakers that lead La Fabrique du Temps, which is at the helm of the revival that not only Daniel Roth brand, but also Gérard Janta brand are experiencing these days under Louis Vuitton's premises. So at the end of the day, I'm happy that my second choice won the awards here. And Voutilainen, you will see, won in another category where it was my favorite. Again, the subscription series is an interesting concept to be chosen by a luxury group flush with money. That's why it came under very serious criticism, right? Because the subscription model is really for watchmakers that are trying to get their operations off the ground with some capital injection, so they can start making the watches before they have to deliver the final product. They would have some part, and sometimes a substantive part, of the money. So LVMH doesn't need this kind of model, and it felt a little disingenuous for them to use that name to bring this watch as a revival. Perhaps it was simply a reference to the original inspiration of the watch, the original subscription series of tourbillon wristwatches that gave birth to the brand. But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna remain a cynic for too long. But OC is here. I love the background.
Psychedelic OC tonight.
Yeah, it's great. You also have a tie-dye shirt. I didn't notice that. Amazing.
What's up? You catfished me with the Daniel Roth. I'm so happy that that reference won for Tourbillon of the Year.
Yeah, tell me more about it. What makes you so happy about that specifically?
First of all, it's not Gerald Charles, which I'm now on a rant against Gerald Charles. I don't want, like, I saw a couple of YouTubers spruiking them, and right. I'm really against confusing Daniel Roth and Gerald Charles.
Did you read what the Screw Down Crown King Flum wrote about Gerald Charles as a brand a few weeks back at all?
Actually, it does ring a bell. I think it had to do with the fact that Gerald Charles was either cheaply made or the components were inexpensive or something, and they were overpriced.
Yes, I think the main criticism is precisely that the market placement doesn't really jive with the actual quality of the product and the lack of any long-standing heritage. Now, it's one of those brands that I really want to like, right? And I had at Watchtime New York, I had an experience with them. Well, two experiences really that are on two different ends of the spectrum. Like, the first person that I saw on Saturday was one of the kindest, generous, and patient people that I'd ever seen. And the person I talked to on Sunday, I'm not going to name and shame or name and honor either one, because then, people will know the other one. He was practically one of the biggest assholes I've ever seen in the watch world. And look, I'm an asshole, but I'm not spruiking anything. I'm not trying to sell you something, right? So I can get away with it. But for a brand representative to be just such a blatantly unpleasant person, I mean, I guess that's great, right? At least you were showing me your true colors. But that left a bitter taste in my mouth already. I think their pricing is delusional for a brand that just has a loose connection to Gérard Janta's heritage. that they tried to also pad with Octavio Garcia's designs as well, who was a protege of Jantin, who also spent a lot of time at AP. But anyway, that's my part of the rant.
My part of the rant is that we're at a time where I think the introduction of the Patek Philippe Cubitus will encourage more people to look at watches with unconventional case shapes, non-round case shapes, and so people are going to look at this. They're going to look at Gerald Charles because of the linkage between the Nautilus and Gerald Charles, and they're going to say, "Oh, well, maybe this is something I should look at." And I don't want people to be confused. So it's not really a public service. It's my own opinion, my own commentary, but I don't want people to get confused and think that Gerald Charles is some kind of great brand and in any way confuse it with Daniel Roth, which I think is awesome.
Ooh, I heart Maldives.
Boy.
Let's go shopping for a Nautilus for OC. Okay, we are taking a short break from our GPHG winners coverage.
Maldives is he's so generous and he's so caring and so thoughtful. Maldives. I mentioned earlier today that I'd really like to consider getting a Nautilus. Like, and what if I were to get a Nautilus, what should it be? And he immediately started sending me links of stuff to look at. So very generous guy.
I've been going down the mid-size Pateks, and in my three-piece Patek Gangxi
collection.
Gangxi collection. What is a Gangxi collection? I don't know what that means. It would be the 5165A, 5800A, and 3970P. So it would be an Aquanaut, a Nautilus, and a perpetual calendar chronograph. That sounds like a great collection, but I think we took a look at some point just on our phone screen, I believe, on a mid-size Nautilus together, and
we did.
I don't remember what your opinion about that was. I think it was a 3800 J, maybe.
Right. Yeah, I'm not against it. I'm open to it. I particularly like the idea of getting a monoblock design Nautilus. So that is appealing just because of the heritage of the design. I just think Nautiluses, there's nowhere to go but up from here. I mean, will they drop just a little bit more? Maybe, probably.
Sure.
But
maybe in the short term, yeah.
In the short term, but I think in the long run, if you want a Nautilus, you better think about getting one soon, because the way Terry Stern is thinking, the way he's going, they're going to be harder and harder to get, and they're going to require it's impossible to get at retail, and I think more and more people are going to say that if they ever wanted a Nautilus, that they should be getting them soon. I like the two-tone one. I like it. I actually do like the two-tone one.
I think, I am actually a big fan of 3800, and let me tell you why. And I should also add the caveat that I'm not a huge fan of the Nautilus as a design, especially vis-a-vis the Royal Oak. And what irritates me is usually the big old ears, right? I think I don't like the fact that they extend so far out. And I think 3800 is a little more streamlined. For me, it's a better design, although I usually don't make the mistake of straying away from the Maestro's original intention. I will do it just this once. I actually like it better than the original Jumbo or the 5711. My two favorites are either the two-tone with the blue dial or the full gold with the champagne dial, which is kind of more like a presidential aesthetic rather than the Nautilus pure and simple.
Yep. I agree. I saw recently the gold one with the champagne dial. It might have been on Chrono or somewhere else, and I do really, really like it.
like something like this.
Yeah. And this is yellow gold, not rose gold?
No, this is yellow gold.
Yellow gold.
Yeah.
They don't make yellow gold anymore, correct?
Right now they don't have it in the catalog. No, they have
I think that
the two-tone that combines steel and pink gold. They have, of course, a variety of pink gold models. They used to have a lot of white gold, on the strap. I don't know what they have currently in catalog. Of course, they now have the 5811G in white gold.
Yeah. Is this the front loading movement, or does this have the 3-piece case?
3800 is, I think, still the monoblock case design. Let me confirm that, though.
Not that that's a deal killer for me, because I mean, water resistance and servicing, those aren't paramount issues for me.
Yeah, it is a monoblock case. 5711 already moves on from that, even in its earliest production. But yeah, this is the front loading, so to speak.
Nice. I like it. It's like a Nautilus version of a gold. You just mentioned it, of a gold date.
Right.
Right.
That's what I think of usually. Ryan Hoffrey says, not to rain on OC's parade, but the bottom bridge is quite Gérard Perregaux. The Daniel
He's referring
Roth.
to the Daniel Roth tourbillon. Yeah. I don't know if I see that. The Gérard Perregaux bridge is a very long horizontal piece that goes across the entire that entire area of the dial. But I appreciate the comment, Ryan. Yeah, there's probably a couple of people. I mean, you, Brando, and a few other people with whom I will consult on this process if I get serious about it. For some reason, it's in my head now that even though, like you, I've never been a massive fan of the Nautilus. I've always thought it looked very 70s-ish.
Yeah.
It's in many ways it's dated in terms of its look. But yeah, I think
I can't
that
disagree
70s datedness, it's almost, but now it's almost like it's its favor. The fact that it represents an era that will be gone from the lineup potentially sooner rather than later. And that actually makes it more appealing and more desirable. I mean, when something's harder to get or something's getting rarer or more exclusive, the psychology around it is that it does become, if there's an interest in getting it, it becomes more desirable, and it creates a sense of urgency. At least for me, it does.
You in a way, you're right, because there are certain things like the Nautilus that have exponentially risen in value over the last few years, and I don't think they will drop so radically over long term either. The only thing, in an ideal world where money is not an object, I think I would probably go for a two-tone 3800. The thing that primarily holds me back at this moment is because as late as 2017, I was seeing these for $12,000-$13,000. Now they are 3 times that, and maybe in short to midterm they might fall into lower 30s a little bit, but they're not gonna go down to 18 or 15 anytime soon, because again, we live in a moment where people are much more cursory knowledge, yes, but much more knowledgeable about these things. First of all, they know that they exist, and that's enough already to create a very intense and competitive market for pieces like the Nautilus or the Royal Oak or desirable vintage Rolex pieces.
Yeah, I do like this. I do like the all yellow gold one even more than this one.
Yeah.
So I'll have to do a little bit of research, and thanks to you and Maldives and a few other people who I consider Patek Philippe enthusiasts, I'll be considering whether or not I continue to entertain this, or if I just put myself out of my misery?
I don't know. I mean, it's not bad. I think I like them both in equal measure, but of course, the two-tone is always a much more enticing deal.
It's because of its versatility, or the fact that it has the blue dial. What is it for you that makes it more appealing?
I mean, the two-tone also has its variations, but I like it with the blue dial a little more. To me, I've always liked two-tone watches. I don't know whether it's the versatility. I think it's mostly because I'm cheap, man. It's they're always favored less by the market. You know, it was almost always the case that they would be cheaper than both the stainless steel and precious metal alternatives, right? And that to me, you know, is always enticing. But sometimes some watches lend themselves better to the two-tone execution. I think the Nautilus is not so bad when it comes to that. I think the Royal Oak and the Santos, Cartier Santos, are probably some of the best. Like, to me, they look sometimes even better in two-tone than in stainless steel or in precious metal. But yeah, when it comes to the Nautilus, I think there's that too. I think the two-tone, to me, a lot of times looks better than stainless steel. And it is also a great deal. So I can't neglect the cognitive reaction that creates in me.
Cool. Thank you, Maldives, for the super chat. Thank you for supporting Young Brando channel.
Thank
MCM pulled the trigger on the Ferdinand Berthoud FB3 SPC today. So stoked. Wow, MCM. Huge move.
And MCM says, congratulations to Kari. And maybe we can circle back to the awards. MCM, by the way, I think MCM, remind me again, I think you pulled the trigger from Cellini, but continuing our story, OC, that we were talking about earlier, like, you know, how easy it is sometimes to make a customer happy, to gain a new customer, to continue a working business relationships. These days, again, because the balance was so tipped during the pandemic, you know, they like talking about journeys and relationships, neglecting that they are part of that relationship, right? You know, and they should also do some courting and something to sustain that relationship. And I think, yeah, Cellini, Leon gave MCM a free strap for his Kari Voutilainen. And now MCM got Ferdinand Berthoud Chapter 3 watch through Leon at Cellini. So it's incredible.
That's incredible. Yeah. Cellini does a really good job, and there are multiple people over just the past couple of years that I've been on YouTube that I've referred to Cellini who've gone on to buy very expensive watches, Grunfeld, Lederer, and all kinds of Grubel Forsey. So they do a great job there.
Yeah, I think also, you know, it's nowadays, especially in locales oceans away sometimes from us, it's become more habitual that, you know, you have boutiques and spaces that bring together so many different independent brands, you know, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, increasingly in the Arabian Peninsula. But Cellini was well ahead of the wave, you know. I mean, they have been at this for more than 4 decades. I think they were historically they were in Waldorf Astoria, right? And now they're on Park Avenue, but they have been in business for for about 40 years, if I'm not mistaken.
And they had some of the larger independent brands until those brands started to distribution strategy. Like I believe they were a big Audemars Piguet dealer back in the day until AP kind of went more direct route. So they have a storied history in New York.
Let me quickly send this message.
This is the Voutilainen.
Yeah, the watch that won in the men's watch category. Again, one of the pieces that I picked, mostly for sentimental reasons, because I think I would probably, I don't know what I would sacrifice. I don't know, possibly my right hand, even though I'm a righty, because I have to wear the watch on my left. Yeah, I really like this. And even, as much, of course, one of the signatures of Kari is a guilloche dial, right? So it feels kind of absurd to get rid of that. But if you get the inverted movement displayed in such a beautiful way, and that balance wheel almost at the focal point of the watch, perhaps that's a worthy sacrifice, speaking of chopping things off.
Yeah, I didn't really love any of the nominees in this category, but this one, I like the dial the best on this one. I'm not a huge fan of the lugs that make the watch look like a scarab a little bit,
Yeah. I don't mind that, actually, now that you said it. For me, the Van Uyt, the 28, is a case design that I find actually very elegant. The teardrop lugs for me is one of the distinctive elements of that case. But perhaps with this kind of pseudo-industrial looking dial, that scarab shape that you identified is not so unappealing to me. I actually like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
The second sand is on the back, by the way, the second subdial.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's just weird, Brando. It's just.
I love some weird watches.
First of all, this guy has been pimping himself out, doing collabs with everybody under the sun. Everybody has a collab with Voutilainen with a Voutilainen dial. Even Zenith did one. I mean, it's like it's. There's literally like 7 collaborations that he's done in the past 2 years.
The Zenith one was like an extremely limited 10+1 piece limited edition.
That was a good one. Didn't he do one too with the guy that does the clown watch? What's the name
the
of that?
Chaikin. There's
Chaikin,
a
even which
collaboration.
He did. He's done more collaborations than YouTube channels that I've been on. Just to show you how much he's pimped himself out.
Schwarz Etienne has an entire series in collaboration with Voutilainen, but then again, I think they use the dials are, I believe, from Comblemine rather than Kari's own workshop.
Yeah, and he did, and didn't Moritz Grossman also do a collaboration with him as well, like within the past year?
Not sure. I must have missed it. If there is such a collaboration, I must have missed it. Split Hair says, is income from the dials, i.e. also collaborations, pays for this stuff? Yeah, if it does, man, I'm happy. Honestly, I actually I like it. To me, the movement is perhaps the most integral part for a piece like this. I love the anglage. I love the internal angles. I love the frosted finish. And if I'm not mistaken, this is a German silver movement as well, which means that it will patinate in possibly interesting ways over over time. So this would be a cool watch to have if you can get an allocation to begin with, and it also costs 140,000 in Swiss
Ouch.
francs. So
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen some blued screws thrown in there in a couple of places just to offset the blue on the outer ring. But other than that, it's pretty cool. I mean, there's some blue there in the movement at the top, and there's blue obviously as part of the observatory hands.
Yeah, those are the escapement wheels. It's sure. I think there's a bunch of everything, and in a very balanced way, I would say.
It's good.
But I see your point.
There's a very giant screw at the bottom which holds, what is that, the mainspring there at the bottom?
Which one do you mean?
All the way on the that big giant screw there.
It's the mirror polish one. I think that's the ratchet wheel, and then
that's one big screw.
Yeah, I don't exactly know what that is, actually. Maybe the description can give us an idea. But yeah, what were you going to say about that?
It's big. It's a big ass screw.
Okay. I don't know. I really love this watch. This was my favorite for the men's complication watch. I'm really not surprised. The floating lugs design actually make these watches quite wearable in a very surprising way. I have very skinny wrists. So a lot of times when I see on paper anything above 40 millimeters, I get scared right away. But at 42, 43, sometimes the Betune really sits in a different way on the case. And with all this complication, I don't think it's a very thick watch in this case either. This is the winner of the men's complication watch, DB kind of Grand Complication. The thickness is 13.85, so most chronographs are thicker than that.
Yep. Hats off to De Betune.
And it kind of,
Star Trek.
No pun intended, but you do get basically two definitive styles of De Betune in a single watch as well, right? The starry skies on one, and that leaf like bridge that has been likened to the Star Trek symbol as well on the other side.
And you get two kinds of watches in the sense that you get a kind of a traditional looking Breguet looking dress dial on one side, and you fuse that with a very scientific, technical engineering on the other. It's just and that's what they do, I think, better than anybody right now, is a meeting of the minds between old world tradition, but updated with scientific precision and geekness, for lack of a better term.
I always like to define them as Breguet meets Star Trek, or classical watchmaking meets science fiction kind of thing. And it's a very beautiful product, even though it's not for everyone. And perhaps, in these more contemporary iterations, not even for me, but I still appreciate De Betune quite a lot.
What are the complications in this thing?
First of all, let's start with one of their distinctive things, the spherical moon face. right? And I think I like to think that that porthole might actually give the moon phases in a second hemisphere, though I'm not too sure about that. It might simply be a day-night indicator as well. Certainly a perpetual calendar. Then on the other side, you have I think a tourbillon, not a flying tourbillon. This should be the tourbillon bridge, the open-worked one, on which, of course, there's a second sand that pivots. Power reserve indicator right here. Another indicator for the dates here, which is a retrograde, I believe.
Lots of shit going on.
And I think it's a jump seconds on this dial, kind of like a ticking seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else?
And all of that's operated through the crown?
I believe so.
Wow. This is one of those watches where the case is on the hinges. There's hinges on both sides of the case, and the lugs are actually move.
I think it's just to clarify. I think it's a double display of hours and minutes. It says, which means I think it's not two different times displayed. I think it's the same time that you arranged that's displayed on both sides, or at least.
So is the watch technically could be reversible or flippable?
Oh, it is flippable entirely. You can wear it on both sides. Yeah, it's entirely flippable. Actually, that's part of the charm of the kind of too, because you see the crown is here on this side. The crown is up here at 12 o'clock on this side. So it is in fact entirely reversible. I think, let's see if there's a view from the profile. There's none. So no, there is I think there are a few pushers here, which might be for the adjustment of the calendar. I don't think everything is settled from the crown. But yeah, to get all that, I think you are paying a price of like about 400,000 Swiss francs. The iconic that went to Piaget Polo. Again, this was one of the watches that I had liked, but I find the pricing, man, I find the market placement of this revival so delusional, like so expensive compared to how these pieces, how the originals trade on the market, that I really, like, it kind of kills the watch for me. What do you think about the Piaget Polo 79?
Yeah, I really like it. I think they looked a lot at the Vacheron 222 when it came to pricing it. They wanted to be in that same range. MCM, new member. Thank you very much, MCM.
And gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. It went to Aces Full, Jan G, Pent 101, G Gadwa, and Apes. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you, MCM, for becoming a member and gifting those 5 memberships. You said they basically copied the price of 222.
Yeah. They wanted to be in
brand, right?
Yeah, I think the 222 has actually gone up. It came out at 66. It's probably in the mid 70s now in just a couple of years. And this is expensive too, especially related when you compare it to the vintage models that are still available in secondary. When I was talking about this earlier, when I think about how you award a winner for the iconic category, sometimes I try to think through the lens of which watch will have the biggest impact on the consumer, on the watch buying public, which watch will be an inspiration to its peers, and which watch will make the biggest impact on the industry. If I use those criteria, this isn't really a winner, because of its high price point. Very few people are actually going to be affected by this watch, and a lot of the retro inspired retro mods like the have already been done. The Ingenieur, the 222, it's kind of like this was maybe 2 years past its prime for when it could have come out and made a huge impact on watch brands looking back into their history and pulling out an iconic timepiece, right?
Just as a refresher, by the way, these were the 6 nominated pieces, or to simplify the terminology, the 6 finalists. And I had chosen the Uhrwerk precisely because of what, I mean, we hadn't coordinated about this, but what you just said now, because for me, an icon is not only a watch model or design which kind of identifies or characterizes an entire brand, but it's also something that gives inspiration to so many others. And there's no denying that Uhrwerk itself has inspired a number of micro brands, but also solidified kind of the use of wandering hours and jump hour complications, especially in these sorts of post-industrial steampunk-like designs. I think they deserved some recognition for that. I think just the inclusion of the tambour here is a charade. Just because it exists for more than 2 decades doesn't make it iconic. Like, no one cares about the tambour. No one cares about the integrated bracelet version. I think it's shameful that it even made to the final. Even Hublot has more of a claim, I think, to that sort of iconic status than the tambour here. But my favorite was Uhrwerk. Sentimentally, perhaps I wanted Breitling to win as well because it's just a handsome watch. But the Navitimer is the icon, not really the cosmonaut iteration of it. So Piaget Polo makes sense. I just don't like the price point, with this.
I think there's no doubt that the Polo was an icon, and in the 80s represented that time period. And you always think of it as an icon of that time period. How important is it going forward? I'm not quite sure. And just to do a little bit of a quick counterpoint to you on the tambour, I think for Louis Vuitton, the tambour going forward for them is more important to that brand than any of the other pieces are to those brands for their future. So if this, I mean, they really want this and need this to work, and it's probably not doing very well in the marketplace. They put a lot of time and effort into it, but for Louis Vuitton, this going forward, they want the impact of this watch to be disproportionately large for them than any of the other watches are for their respective brands. Like the Cosmonaut, it doesn't matter. Hey, Chocolate.
Thanks for the thorough reviews of each category, and thank you, OC, for joining me tonight. Sorry.
Pleasure.
Continue.
Yeah, so the Navitimer, for example, will do very well whether or not there's a new version of the Cosmonaut. The Hublot Big Bang or the Unico or whatever this one is, that's whether or not they came out with a new size or a different dial color or whatever. That was going to continue. Whether the IWC, that watch looks the same as every other watch, minus that stupid fan blade tourbillon thing. But for Louis Vuitton, this watch is very, very important to them. So
the funny thing is, I mean, what I like about IWC these days is either the kind of variety colors they offer in their Ceratanium, the ceramic titanium alloy case. I kind of appreciate that. Again, even though I'm not really sure if any of those watches are for me, even though I'm kind of a fan of the Pilot's 41 chrono. I think they have too many gimmicky watches in their portfolio, but the fact that they, coinciding with the 90th birthday of Kurt Klaus as well, worked on this secular perpetual calendar, the eternal perpetual calendar that they called it, which won, by the way, the Grand Prix, the biggest prize of the night. I think that's a great direction, but this big Pilot with that turbine, or it's so gimmicky. I mean, it's the whole big Pilot thing at any rate disgusts me to no end. And yes, it has something to do with who I am. I can't get over it. It's a personal problem more than anything. But for me, it makes the whole brand so off-putting that they leaned on that for so long. I mean, they need to go back to kind of the Günther Blümlein lineage of that brand, which is much more into leaning on technicality, leaning on innovation, and the masculinity of that, not just a big watch, right? Something complex, complicated, and innovative, forward-thinking. That's what IWC means to me.
This Urwerk, is this a revamp of a prior model, or is this a new model?
This one? Yeah, it is. It is reloaded. It's one of their earlier models, re-released in a limited edition. Actually, I think it has to be. I think a watch like this needs to be their gateway drug, their entry-level model, because it does look futuristic enough, but it is something that can also bring in more conservative people, even someone who likes AP's Star Wheel in that round case with the stepped bezel, can easily imagine himself, at least in some future possibility, wearing a watch like this. Whereas a lot of the more futuristic and space age models might not appeal to the average watch collector, but someone who gets this and kind of enters the extended Ulvac universe, so to speak, can then go on to so many different things once they kind of get acclimated through a watch like this. At least that's what I think.
And an important part of being a gateway is having a certain level of accessibility, whether that be through availability or through price point. And this one certainly has
not too bad for an independent.
Yeah. We're not talking 80,000 or 90,000 like Debatoons entry level,
like the Piaget Polo,
which I think is 75,000 or something like that, right?
Yeah, this is
68,000.
The Swiss price, which includes the VAT.
So there you go. Yes. By the way, I've never really asked you this, but if they were to continue on with the Polo 79, would you want them to make the square version too? The rectangular version?
Honestly, again, for what? All of these things exist in the secondary market, and sometimes in impeccable condition, and for a fraction of this price. Like I really don't give a fuck if they make a square one. Just buy on the secondary. Morillo 55, Guy Gohari. Yeah. He's your guy. He's in New York.
I know. Yeah, I know. I could go.
He has at least a handful of Piaget polos at any point in time. Sometimes in impeccable condition. Sometimes still very good, but perhaps not the best example you have seen. But always, at a reasonable price point. It's not it's not the most expensive one in the market, and he has all sorts of varieties. So if you are patient enough and wait, for the next 3-6 months or a year, I'm sure you can find a square one through someone like Guy.
Yeah.
Or someone, either Guy or someone like him. There are many who specialize on these kinds of watches on the same.
And he's so great on Instagram too. He's just you can't he's kind of irresistible on Instagram to watch.
I also love he keeps sending out this meme of a Turkish guy who sells like nuts or something, like with the long mustache, who winks at the camera. Okay. Have you ever seen that?
No, I don't think so.
It makes me laugh so much because again, it's the kind of loud merchant-like personality that shows that Guy has a sense of humor about how he appears on Instagram. So I really, really love that. That's I'm gonna send you guys the Instagram link.
Did you ever meet him in person?
No, and I've never dealt with him, so it's not like I can vouch for him 100%. But I love the personality on Instagram, and I always like his inventory as well. So it's not the kind of relationship that I have, say, with Win. Oops, that wasn't it.
Next time you're in New York, we'll go in. We'll meet up with him.
That would be great. That would be great. I would love to meet him.
He's also a big fan of retro cars as well. So he believes in. He has an old like Mercedes from the late 70s. He has a Saab 9.3. He doesn't believe in modern technology at all.
Great. In watches too, apparently.
In watches too.
So we have 3 more before we get to the big prize.
Right. Sorry to distract you.
No, not at all. Not at all. But we have about 15 minutes. So the Lady Journouille was actually one of the watches that I chose for this category. So I'm happy that it won. It kind of has a chameleon-like dial, you might say, because it has a rotating disc that serves as a day-night indicator. Too bad that they didn't choose one of the pictures with the day scene. Perhaps it's not as impressively gem set as this, or maybe not, but it makes me think a certain way. But I like, as a ladies' watch, I actually like this. The fact that it comes with a unique complication as well, beyond just gem setting, is fantastic. And it's very elegant anyways, even if nothing else happened on this style. But yeah, perhaps it's a scene similar to what is depicted on the case back. I don't know. I would love to see this piece in person. Maybe I should go to Van Cleef & Arpels on Rodeo Drive.
Van Cleef & Arpels, without giving anything away, cleaned up this year. Yeah, they.
What do you mean by that?
I think that they won several categories.
Yeah. We did. You're right.
I mean, between Chopard, Piaget, and Van Cleef & Arpels, they really dominated.
Yeah, but it's that's one of the things about this competition, isn't it? When Cartier is excluded, who else is gonna win?
Yep.
There are only so many, right? Bulgari is not. Is Bulgari there? I think they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yes,
yeah. Octo Finissimo is there.
Bulgari is there. Cartier is not. Obviously, it's going to be a fight between Bulgari, Van Cleef, Chopard, and Piaget to a certain extent. But again, I really like what they're doing. I don't know if I missed out on it, but the Rodeo Drive boutique had like a poetry of time or something like that, like an exhibit that focused on timepieces. Clearly, they are channeling some energy into the horological space. And their watches always kind of bring both the jewelry and accessory perspective and horological and even complications perspective in equal measure. They make a lot of interesting watches, even though the aesthetic is not always appealing. What is the complication in this? This is the ladies' complication winner. It's a retrograde, I think, right?
It's a retrograde on both sides, and what's incredible about this one is those 3 flowers actually move. So you need to see a video of this. Unfortunately, on their own website, they maybe that is it.
But I need to copy that back here. Oops.
But it's actually quite incredible and innovative how it looks in motion.
Wow, and it's also kind of 3-dimensional too.
Yeah, and the butterflies. Yeah, the butterflies. It's impossible. Yeah, with an invisible hands, basically.
That is very cute.
And I'm not sure if you could see that those flowers actually wave back and forth in the breeze.
I mean, that's what the watch is called, like summer breeze, I think, brise d'été. It's very, very cool. Again,
it's very cool.
I love the fact that they kind of make a jewelry piece that also has an inventive application of what are otherwise very traditional horological complications. That's cool. I think well deserved. Again, it's not something I got right this time around, but that's very cool. The time only. That's a beautiful dial. I really don't like the streamliner. Speaking of a dated design, I mean, imagine creating something like this in the 21st century and not simply inheriting it from the 70s. I can't imagine what that's like. But I really like Mose as a brand, so I'm not gonna, belabor this point much. But they make great dials, and this particular blue enamel dial is, I think, incredible.
Shout out to Brody. Brody actually has this exact watch that he picked up earlier this year, and he has the winner. This is it's okay. The dial is cool in person and all that. The Chopek Promenade is a new release for this year, which seems kind of boring. Then you have the Parmigiani, Tonda PF in this category. No.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of the streamliner. I'm not I don't like the case all that much to begin with, but that bracelet, oh god, I mean, it's
comfortable. It's very comfortable. Much better in person than it is to look at.
Yeah, it also looks like a Spidal shitter. So it's I mean, I'm sorry, man. I mean, it's comfortable, but what is comfort if it doesn't look good? I mean, you know me. I try to put myself together in a certain way, but I'm also not very much in line with these new fashion trends where it's about being comfortable and luxurious at the same time. I think it's disgusting, right? People should stop wearing shorts for all 4 seasons and sweatsuits for being fashionable. I mean, anyway, not that I have any chance of making any Gen Z people my audience, but I don't want to offend them all that much right away. So I will stop right here. But yeah, I mean, the bracelet is comfortable, but it looks like shit. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, well, if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah, but the price point for this piece, with that stunning dial for an integrated bracelet, stainless steel watch, under 30K, with an independent brand that is a true integrated manufacturer. You know, not many companies make their own hairsprings. So Mose has a lot to offer, I think, across the board in their entire catalog. I just don't like the Streamliner. You know, that's really that.
Yep.
That's a beautiful dial in an otherwise ugly watch. Thank you.
There you go.
So the big prize, the Aiguille d'Or, the golden hand, goes to IWC's Portuguese Eternal Calendar. This piece, of course, builds on the legacy of that legendary module that Kurt Klaus built, which made at the time when they released the Da Vinci Perpetual Calendar chronograph, only the second manufacturer to make a perpetual calendar chronograph in series. You know the first one, you know the only other one up until that time, which is 1986. That was Patek, of course. So it was a big leap for IWC, and it's a tradition they continued for so long, building upon it now with their Eternal Calendar, which is a secular perpetual calendar, which actually takes into account, which has a module, in fact, programmed to take into account those centurial years, the non-leap leap years. I think they are 2100, 2200, and 2300, so on and so forth. But this means that this watch, at least in theory, does not need any correction, until year 4000, I think.
It's good for 64 light years. So
it's a good way to put it. By the way, MCM said, gonna send a love letter to Lederer. That's my feeling as well. I really like that watch. And, you know, MCM, we like German watches, right? You know, so there's something about the austerity of that dial.
is he referring to the time only, the 3 times observatory chronometer, in the time only category? Okay,
the one that won the 3 time the chronometry prize.
Oh, okay, that one.
What do you think about this, the Portuguese Eternal Calendar?
Based on the fact that it has that it keeps time for however many hundreds of years, I think it's an incredible. I mean, from what I've read about it, it's just an incredible achievement. So it certainly deserves to win. It's not my cup of tea in terms of my complication or what I want or need a watch push, but it is incredible that they put together a team to do it. They accomplished it, introduced it, and it clearly gives them bragging rights.
I mean, also, at least in the last few years, the Aiguille d'Or generally goes to pieces that constitute some sort of technical achievement, usually in their combination of complications or in their original interpretation, or minimally at least offering them like thinner than usual, right? Because last year it was the Code 1159, the Universal RD4. Before that, it was MBNF's Sequential Evo, the double chronograph. Before that, it was the Bulgari Octofinissimo Perpetual Calendar with the retrograde hand and I think what was then, at least, and perhaps still, the thinnest self-winding perpetual calendar, if I'm not mistaken. So they always value that achievement at the highest level when it comes to complications. It doesn't surprise me that the secular perpetual calendar won this year.
Is there a way for them to take this and kind of introduce slightly dumbed down versions to make it more accessible, or is this a watch that you go all out and you accomplish this goal and that's it? Or does it serve as inspiration to introduce slightly watered down, less complicated versions in the future?
I mean, IWC has all sorts of perpetual calendars in there
Already.
in their lineup. So I guess that can be considered, quote unquote, a dumbed down or lesser version of this. I think the Portuguese perpetual calendars are usually a third of this price, more or less. And there are, I mean, you don't have to go into the secondary market to find a cheaper IWC perpetual calendar either. There are a few different iterations of it that exist in their catalog already in this classic, slightly oversized dress watch case that they call the Portuguese. Beyond that, I guess they could possibly have like something with a more simplified dial, maybe in a less precious metal, like stainless steel instead of titanium, I guess. Yeah, they could have something like that, but this is really a rarefied piece. Like it's such a it's like such an aspirational complication, which perpetual calendar already is, but in this version, you really have to be geeking out about it, because again, these watches need service, so they need correction anyway, and will certainly need correction before 2400, even if someone finds a way of making us immortal until then. So I guess it kind of serves that purpose of being just top of the line at a certain price point and only offered in the most precious metals, as minute repeaters usually are, right?
Yep.
Even if lesser noble metals might sound at least louder, if not necessarily objectively better.
And I do have to hand it to them, because not only did they achieve the engineering marvel of the Eternal Calendar, but they did so in a way that, from a design perspective, is unmistakably Portugueser,
Right.
and fully recognizable with the IWC DNA upon an initial glance. I mean, that is the iconic 4 subdial layout that you recognize when you think of IWC. You see the font of the applied numerals is instantly recognizable. So they've kept they kept all the DNA of IWC. It's instantly recognizable as a Portugueser, while also accomplishing all of the technical engineering, which is not easy to do.
Yeah, and the dial again is a little unique, a little more original, a little more going on than their usual perpetual calendars.
Mm-hmm.
So Portugueser, not only for geezers, this is a good one.
And the case looks fantastic. The case is simple, classy, and elegant.
Yeah, amazing. And the double moon phase is great. Again, one of those romantic things, not really useful in any way for most of us, but still, to have that in that simple way in both hemispheres. I don't know, I like it. Um, the fact that they use those sapphire crystal elements for the dial, which give you a peek into the mechanism, is great. I think that's like one of those Maltese cross gears. I don't know what function it exactly serves. The one that you peak right here around 430. I think it's probably the leap years that are programmed into that, but I won't speculate much because I'm not really an expert of those elements of a perpetual calendar module. But still, it looks cool. And there are a couple of other prizes which can help us close the discussion. The special jury prize went to Jean-Pierre Agman, the famous case maker who made his name or gave his signature really with the cases he made for some of the definitive Patek Philippe chiming watches, but was also behind the genre-defining chronomètre contemporain by Recep Recepi. And these days, he and his establishment serves as the in-house case maker for Acrivia for Recep Recepi as well. So he received the special jury prize, which is kind of a lifetime achievement awards they give. The Eco Innovation Prize went to Chopard, again, one of those super categories. I think it was mostly because of Chopard's efforts of using recycled metals. Even their steel at this point is like 70-75% recycled. So the LUC Qualité Fleurier won that prize. I love their dress watches. Honestly, I think it's a mix of contemporary and conservative in good measure. Rémi Coul's Tourbillon Atelier gave him the Horological Revelation Prize. Did you take a look at all at this brand?
Yep. I saw this brand in Geneva at I believe at I met Remy at the ACHI event in Geneva at Watches and Wonders. So cool guy.
Likewise, MCM, by the way, it was great to meet the missus, great to meet you, great to see your Voutilainen. Clarify, that your puppy is actually a German Shepherd and not a Malinois, like I always mistake him for. It was a great memory as well. Yeah, I haven't actually seen any of Rémi Coul's watches in person, but again, I like the simplicity of the design here. It's clearly there are all sorts of inspirations that you can perhaps delineate, but it's still a watch that looks like his own creation. I like the equal kind of weight given to time telling, and the tourbillon kind of gives me early Jean vibes, but it doesn't look like a Jean at all, which is a good thing.
And he has those what do you call them, those bridges or those axles or whatever that are there. That he's I guess he's making kind of a signature of his design. Mm-hmm. It's hard to come up with something new, but you have to come up with your own signature elements.
And the movement side is not too shabby either, honestly. Increasingly, I love kind of the simplicity of big frosted bridges with nice anglage to go with it. Obviously, this mostly looks like a rendering, at least on the movement side, so I can't really judge finishing on that basis, but this is a maker that I want to look into. But the aesthetics of it, I really do appreciate. The way the tourbillon bridge offsets that, whatever you call it. You called it an axle. Let's go with that. That sets in place.
It's some kind of brace or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a cool looking watch. And finally, the Audacity prize went to Berneron. This is another watch that I really don't like, and I blame Ronnie for the whole hype about design watches. Every time someone comes up with a watch like this, I want to poke my eyes out. But listen, the redeeming thing about this watch is it is a movement that is made for this watch, that is form-fitting. I really like that. Even the movement itself has a unique design that flows with the spirit of the watch.
The back's better than the front, way better.
I feel like that too. But again, I do appreciate that it is a design that's very holistic, inside out, movement, dial. So I can't hate it as much as I want to. Of course, there was that whole debacle in Geneva Watch Week where Sylvain Berneron chased two collectors out of his workshop or whatever, whatever place maybe rented there to display some of the stuff. It was cleared up later, but it felt like, oh my God, are we going to have generations of delusional independent watchmakers who think they are the next Picasso? Isn't one F.P. Jean enough for some time to come? I've never met the guy, so I'm not going to carry that to an end. But, entitlement always rubs me the wrong way. Especially an entitlement that's in no way earned, chill, right? This is the first watch you designed and released. I think he, because there was a miscommunication about the appointment time, and one of the collectors immediately reached out for one of the watches the minute they stepped into the showroom. He felt disrespected or something. Well, what do you expect? Deference or something? I mean, this is not Mona Lisa. It's a watch made in series. People prototype, whatever, people want to touch it. People want to get in close contact with it. And dude, chill. You're not that special. Your watch is not that special. It's just another watch. Some people love it. Some hate it. Some think it's great. Some are, kind of ambivalent about it, the way I am. It's not a big deal. If you think you are too good to show your, people your watches and have them, fumble around with them, just don't release watches, right? That's like musicians lashing out at critics or something, when you release something publicly, you have to deal with certain kinds of attention. You might not like all of it. And you're not an artist. You're a designer and a watchmaker. So let's not get carried away. You're not finding the cure to cancer. You're not going to win a Nobel Prize anytime soon. I'm glad that whole thing was cleared out, but it still left a bad taste in my mouth about this brand and the person behind it. So that's all I will say.
Well, if that's the way you feel about it, I support you 100%, and I will officially boycott this brand going forward
No,
until they
please
make
don't
it
say
right.
that. You don't need to jump on board with any, like, I mean, imagine if you followed along every single crazy thing I say on this channel. That would
Why not?
put you into trouble. That would destroy all the reputation you have built so far.
Oh yeah, I have such a good reputation. This watch is like it's a bad mixture of a Cartier crash and one of those shirts that you see with the clock turning into melted cheese. It's like there's no point to this.
Look, I mean, again, all of that, which is mostly a sentiment I share, those are our subjective opinions. Those are our limited aesthetic perspective, right? So we can shunt that aside. But that whole thing that happened in the Geneva Watch Week, I know it was cleared up. I know he doubled down first in haste in social media and then was very apologetic after the fact, as he should be. But honestly, I mean, it just leaves a very bad impression for me, and I really don't want to see that sort of behavior in any way adopted, replicated by any independent watchmaker. I mean, chill a little bit. You know, you are selling sometimes great watches, all of which are very expensive, some of which are exceptionally crafted. Others leave much to be desired, but at the end of the day, it's just watches, man. I mean, it's no one needs to be taking themselves so seriously. One François Poggion is more than enough for the entire horological world to think they are the next artiste, you know, rather than just a watchmaker. So let's stay there. Let's leave him as the exception, and we can carry on as mere mortals, the rest of us, both collectors and watchmakers.
Well put.
Sandragu. What does that mean? Was that was it related?
It's an inside joke. Inside joke.
I don't get it. Guys, I really appreciate the support. Alireza, Captain, Bezos, and Maldives with the super chats. And of course, Chalk flew up, MCM with his new membership, as well as the 5 that he gifted. And of course, OC for jumping on the panel on this psychedelic trip through
GPHG.
Winning watches in GPHG. Winning watches in GPHG.
The Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève.
That's great. That's better.
It looks like a fun event to actually attend in person. I watched it live on the GPHG YouTube channel, and it looks kind of cool to see everybody there.
I was very happy that it's you know, François-Henri Benamias wasn't part of it this time, and that the host was not a man, so there wasn't, you know, we didn't have any scenes of homoeroticism this time. That wasn't repeated. No one would dare to, of course, sexually assault a woman on stage like Benamias did, the previous host. So I'm glad we had a civil ceremony this time. But yes, Jason was in the audience. He was sending me some pics from the event. Honestly, yeah, if I resided in Switzerland, I would have gone for sure. Otherwise, it's a little stretching it, right? You know, because even if you are going there for the weekend, you go a few days in advance, you get through the auction weekend, and we are already, you know,
next week.
Yeah. So it's that's a pretty long stay for people who are not actively in the industry. I mean, you know, I'll try to swing a whole week for Watches and Wonders, so I can visit a few manufacturers and maybe also some independent makers next year. But that is stretching
Come
it.
with me. Hang out with me. I'm leaving on the 1st of April. I arrive in Geneva on the 2nd of April. I'll be there from the 2nd to the 8th. So,
Yeah,
and I encourage,
that's more or less the plan for me as
yeah,
well.
I encourage all the viewers to think about it. It is a fun thing to do if you've never done it. This will be my 3rd time doing it. It's fun. It's not just about going to the exhibition and seeing the new watches and big, multi-million-dollar booths that you can't even get into, and you're looking at watches behind glass anyway. It's about using that as an excuse, much like Watch Time New York, as an opportunity for great people to come together,
Yeah,
hanging out in cafes, having great dinners, just talking and celebrating, not so much about the hobby, but celebrating each other and the
right.
friendships and the camaraderie that we have together.
That's absolutely very important. And also, now that instead of the Basel world, you have Watches and Wonders in Geneva, which is close enough to the valley, obviously in the same city as all these great boutiques. You have a lot of opportunity outside of the convention center to discover so many brands that you might not able to feel and touch and examine so closely. You can schedule manufacturer visits
Yep.
around it if you can, again, swing a few days away. Go to one
There's
of the major manufacturers,
there's
visit some of
AC
the independents.
there's ACHI as well, where
ACI,
you
yeah.
and then you have also the Beau Rivage Hotel, where about 20 or 30 of the brands have their suites there. So it's a big industry gathering. It's fun.
Amazing. So let's shoot to meet there as well. I know OC is going to be there. I know 90% I'll be there as well. And I know I will see a lot of members of the community. Again, thank you everybody for your support and presence. Please hit the like button if you haven't done that already. I'm on the edge of getting 2.5. I've already crossed, I think, the combined 5K. And again, Ossi and I talked a lot about this. For me, it's about, again, that close, tight-knit group, and also the kind of impact we can have. I mean, I have 2.5 K followers on Instagram, but I have engagements that go over 100,000. I was going to post about that tomorrow, but I can share it with you. So it's like 40K impact. I can only aspire to do that on YouTube. I'm not there yet, but at least I'm back, and I'm back with the kind support of you people. Ossi, thank you again for being on the panel.
Pleasure. Yep.
But we are signing off now. I will be with you hopefully tomorrow as well. And I have my birthday in the weekend, so we might do a stream with that as well. But
Big 30, guys. Help us celebrate young Brando's big 30th birthday.
I don't care about being younger. Call me 50, call me 30. It is actually my 40th. So it is a big one. But yeah, I like being old. I mean, I was always an old man inside, so it doesn't matter for me. My body is just catching up with my old age. Let's put it like that.
By the way, one of the cool things about these late night streams, I'm not sure if anybody notices it or not, but through the window behind you, you have a cool view of planes that land. I'm not going to say where they're landing. I don't want to dox you, but basically, every once in a while, you can see a plane kind of flying right across the window. It's very cool.
The hope is one day they will actually see my species coming back for me and taking me from this desolate world. But we can only hope.
Upvote the live stream. Tell your friends. Make sure you have notifications enabled and set to all. And
all the bell icons and everything. And once the live stream ends, please leave a comment as well. Whether it's a suggestion, just a few nice or vicious words, all of it works as long as you drive some traffic towards this platform. I don't mind. Just don't insult other people, who frequent my chat with, on good faith, who become part of the panel. Direct all insults towards me.
they're well deserved.
And maybe perhaps they're also well deserved. So don't lob them towards people who don't deserve them. So on that note, I will say, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. Thank you, guys. I'll see you in the next one.
Good night.